A Nascent Kaleidoscope. Chapter 141. Thorum POV. This should be far enough. I took a look at our surroundings. It was a fair distance away from the walls of Whiterun, but also far enough away from the farmland that can be rezoed when this crisis has ended. This whole area used to be untouched plains. Wilhelm looked around as well. It was actually quite beautiful. Now it's been reduced to ashes and craters. I do miss the sight before the dragons came. Now when I look out from atop the walls, all I see is destruction. He looked sad as he stared off into the distance. I did not know he cared so much about this land having come from far away. I almost forgot how Sir Wiggles, he has been seen running around Whiterun. At this point most folks know not to harm him, even if they were able to. I let out a laugh. He was playing with the children the other day, letting them chase him around the streets. That's good. I'm glad he's getting out and having some fun. Wilhelm had a content smile on his face. So, how do you want to do this? Well, I scratched my head. I don't know. I chuckled. That's fair. I don't think you've ever had to think about teaching someone before. Wilhelm didn't begrudge my ignorance. To be honest, I don't think I'm ever going to master this Thursday like you will. I'm just hoping to become proficient with a few shouts. The Greybeards did tell me that it was very hard for other people to learn the way of the voice. Even for them, they had stayed away from the world and spent their whole lives learning atop that mountain. And they were still not very good when compared to the average dragon, at least in understanding. Any shouts you wish to practice? I asked. Well, there was that one you used against that dragon where you had a huge burst of speed. He replied, the whirlwind sprint. That was one of the earliest shouts I learned with the Greybeards. Yeah, I wouldn't mind being able to have that kind of speed. But I'm curious about the limitations. Is it a constant effect? Is there a limited duration? It depends on how much power is put into the shout. I tried my best to explain, but this kind of stuff wasn't my strong suit. It's air. The shouts don't use magicka, but they draw power from the soul. I sighed. This was difficult to put into words. I understand. Wilhelm spoke. All the variables from duration to power are dependent on how much strength is put into each shout, along with other things like understanding the words and such, which would explain why this ability isn't more widespread like magic is. It requires a very powerful soul to shoulder the burden, or years and years of practice and meditation. I blinked at his sudden words, how he was able to explain everything I knew instinctively. It briefly made me envious of him before I pushed down those thoughts. Yes, that sounds correct. I nodded at his explanation. Is there any way you want to go about this, or should I tell you the words? Let's start with the words. Wilhelm nodded. First is wood, meaning whirlwind. Second is na, meaning fury. Third is kest, meaning tempest. That's different than I thought. Wilhelm rubbed his chin. Is it bad? I tilt my head at his question, trying to guess his thoughts. Not bad, just different, I suppose. The phrasing makes it seem more aggressive than I first anticipated. Regardless, mind showing me the first word? Of course, my friend. I smiled at his request, taking a few steps away. WULD. I shouted, feeling the world bend around my words. He watched me, and I moved around him, displaying my increased speed. That's pretty good, Wilhelm said, watching my movements. So the first word means whirlwind. All right, I'll give this a shot. I stopped my movements, and the effect wore off with a little bit of effort. Wilhelm readied himself as he called upon the voice. Wood! He shouted, and I felt something. It didn't seem right, but there was something there. All right, let's see how this goes. Wilhelm took a step forward, and suddenly his face was planted in the dirt several paces away. There was a silence as he slowly stood up, turning back towards me. I couldn't help but laugh as a string of curses left his mouth. My friend, that was an interesting shout. What is it called, eating dirt? All right, I'll remember this when I start teaching you some magic. He smiled innocently. Perhaps I will regret this in a few hours, but for now, it was still very humorous to me. Will you try again? I think I know what I did wrong. He brushed himself off. Let's try this again. WULD. He once more shouted, and there was another effect. My instincts were telling me it was incorrect again, but even my eyes could see that clearly as a large gust of wind burst out and flung him in the opposite direction. Wilhelm, are you okay? He gave me a shaky thumbs up before climbing to his feet. Let no one say you cannot take a hit. That landing looked like it hurt. I have an idea. He brushed himself off again, spitting out some dirt from his mouth. Does it involve you becoming intimate with the ground again? I laughed. Just keep it up, big guy. We'll see who's laughing later. Wilhelm pursed his lips. But I was thinking, what if I try it while I'm flying? That way I can get the hang of it without smashing my face into the ground. That sounds like a good plan to me. At least there will be no obstacles for him, and he can get used to the shout this way. All right. He nodded, and his wings burst out of his back. It was a strange sight like always, but I was more used to them now. He had not told me their origin, but I also did not ask. He also did not appear to be as self-conscious about showing them either. Here we go. He took to the skies, about a dozen feet into the air. Wood! He shouted. I watched as he burst forward, doing a flip and flying right into the ground. There was silence again as he pulled his head out of the soil, spitting out more dirt, his eyes locking with mine. And I couldn't hold it in. I fell to the ground, clutching my stomach as I bellowed out laughs. Stupid shout is broken. He huffed in annoyance. That, or someone is fucking with me. It was odd to see Wilhelm having difficulties. I had thought it would come easy to him. He always seemed so confident when a challenge appeared. I always thought of him as a point to strive towards, but seeing like this, it was refreshing. It felt like the space between us had lessened to a degree. Wood! Motherfucker! Wood! God's damn it! Wood! Fucking hell, that's worse. I sat on the ground, a big smile on my face as I watched my friend flail around trying to get a good grasp on the shout. Divines, I needed this. I haven't felt this relaxed in a month? I always felt like we teetered on the edge of oblivion, a single mistake and everything was gone. When Wilhelm came back, it was like a weight off my shoulders. The people kept looking up to me, their dragonborn, but I never felt that I had earned such praise. A part of me just wanted to disappear, to escape away from all the eyes of hope placed on me. Things were tense even with the companions. With the Harbinger still in the stasis spell the Archmage from the college helped cast on him, everyone had been running around to try and find a way to help him while also dealing with the jobs that were overflowing. I couldn't even leave to help them because of the threat of a dragon attack. I had sworn myself as a Thane of Whiterun I couldn't abandon the city in this time. It just seems like things kept piling up, trying to deal with the dragons while also scouring Skyrim for a cure for the Harbinger. Finding out that he was a werewolf had been odd, but I don't like to judge people based on things like that. He was an honorable man, as were the others who came out with the same affliction. I would not even think of vampires that way. De always said to judge a man by his actions, not his heritage. Speaking of vampires, that was another mess that was causing issues, especially with the vampiric dust they found in what looked like a battle inside the city. There have been rumors of the Dawn Guard gathering again, and I found myself disappointed I could not go and take a look. I sighed, watching my friend once more. It filled me with a strange confidence when we told me we merely had to kill Alduin, as if that course of action would be inevitable. Truly, I envied his confidence. But I would not think of that right now, for this moment. I was just enjoy watching him continuously fly into the ground with a wide grin on my face. Wilhelm POV. I think I know what you're doing wrong. Really? I got up for the millionth time, wiping away the dirt. I was filthy at this point, and I had dirt in places I did not want to think about. By all means. I ushered him to continue. Okay, so hear me out on this. Oh, fuck off. Have you tried not slamming into the ground? Knew exactly where you were going with that. Ha 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 ha, Dry-eyed continued to enjoy my torture from within my soul. Are you all right, Wilhelm? Thoram looked at me with a little worry on his face. I'm fine, just dealing with a sarcastic dragon whispering in my ear. I scowled. Dragon. Thoram looked at me strangely. Oh, I forgot to introduce you both. I smacked my head, summoning the boosted gear. Draig, meet Thoram. Thoram, meet Draig. Hello. The boosted gear lit up, projecting Draig's voice. Oh, I was not aware you could speak. Thoram looked shocked. Well met, why Draig Gotch? He said politely. I like him. He shows proper respect to me. And once he knows you, it'll stop. I rolled my eyes. You see what I have to deal with here? Me, the Red Dragon Emperor, and this brat is my wielder. I could always give you back to Issei. And what a great wielder he is. Best I've ever had. Yeah, thought so. I deadpanned. It sounds like you two are close. Thorum smiled. I wish the other dragons were as good-natured. Drake let out a snort, catching his attention. Brat, don't mistake my current attitude for my overall nature. I would never have bothered talking to someone like you as you are now. You would have been beneath my notice as much as you don't care about the ants on the ground when you walk. Oh. Thorum looked depressed by his words. Drake, I hissed, looking down at my gauntlet. What? You want me to baby him? He's a dragon, he needs to grow up. I'm not saying he has to change who he is, but as he is now, he's not worth even a second glance from my old self. If he wants to be nice, if he wants to protect all the people in this city, he needs to get stronger. Oh, this was Drake actually trying to motivate him. I think he liked Thorum just as I did, but as a dragon, he probably found Thorum lacking. Dragons do what they want. Drake grumbled. But you better make sure you're strong enough to continue doing it. Thorum was silent, his expression shifted a few times. Thank you for your words, dragon. Thorum still was respectful. As long as you learn something. The idiot wielding me at least does what the wants, even if it's flirting with every girl that catches his eye. Hey, Thorum, don't you think this gauntlet would look better if it was white? I will destroy you. Thorum's lips curled up. I do believe we have some pigment at the tailor's. Bastard, go back to eating dirt. You know what? I'm going to do it right now. Straightened my back and adjusted my tie, throwing it to the side. I rolled up my sleeves and pushed my hair back. I believe in you, Wilhelm, Thorum cheered with that big goofy smile of his. I closed my eyes, letting my aura spread out. Using the Thursdayum was applicable by forcing one's will onto reality. The words were the driving force, while one's soul needed to actualize the intent. If my theory was correct, I could get a better feel for everything since my aura was the physical manifestation of my soul. I think I knew what was wrong. It was the fact that Drake was in my soul, as ironic as that was. It wasn't the same where Thorum had the soul of a dragon. I was going about it differently. Not to mention Drake's otherworldly origins, and not completely matching the same concept as dragon that this world has. The shout was separated into 3 parts, but the first word was the most important to me. Wood, meaning whirlwind. It was the piece that increased one's movement speed. While the other parts added to it, possibly further increasing the speed, their main intent was something else, to make the user into a true whirlwind, an actual nature phenomenon while they moved. Drake, while also causing me issues, was crucial. If he wasn't in my soul, I don't know if I would have any talent in this particular branch of magic, even if it bore striking resemblance to primordial runes. My eyes snapped open, and my legs tensed in anticipation as I took a deep breath. Wood! I blinked as the magic actualized, the world bending. I expected many things, none of which were me cartwheeling through the air, losing my sense of up and down as everything blended together before I smacked into the ground once more, skipping several times before I came to a rest in a new hole. Ow! I whined, my aura flaring to start healing me. Wilhelm! Thorum ran after me, clearly concerned, probably because this was my worst tumble yet. Damn, I must look like a mess now. I dare not even check to see how bad my clothes were. The prideful part of me was really annoyed at the thought. Thorum, I'm good. I put my hands up to calm him down. Just a little tumble, it wasn't too bad. Well, my aura stopped me from any side effects, just a little jumbled. Though, I felt something when I used my aura in the shout that time, like I saw the correct path to take. Hey, Thorum, want to see something cool? I asked him, my lips quirking up. What do? Wood! I whispered. A burst of wind and I was right at him, my hand on his shoulder to stop myself from falling. He had a big grin on his face. Well done. I couldn't help but smile too. It wasn't nearly as good as his, and I had to really focus on several aspects to get it sorta right, but it was progress. Chapter 142 Lude. I let out a long breath, letting warm water fall onto my head. My body ached a bit, having been practicing different shouts with Thorum all day. Just getting the first part of the whirlwind sprint had taken me a few hours, but after that, I managed to finagle together a sort of approach to studying this strange magical language. My aura was being surprisingly helpful. The fact that having Drake in my soul was one of the factors letting me excel as much as I was, and aura was my soul's physical manifestation onto the world. I could monitor how my aura reacted when I used each shout to sort of eliminate different variables until I got something resembling coherence in each use. That quote by Thomas Edison comes to mind, something about discovering 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. That's pretty much what I did. Found every way I wasn't supposed to actualize the shout, how not to go about it until it somehow felt correct enough to bring about the effect I was intending. Still, I don't think I have any noteworthy talent in the area. I was cheating. Heavily so, and even then, I was barely managing to scrape by. But what I was gaining was still phenomenal. Just the first part of the whirlwind sprint was worth it, and that wasn't even the only one I learned. Granted, it was meant to be used in burst, but it was a great movement ability. There were a few other shouts that I took particular interest in: Elemental Fury, Disarm, Aura Whisper. They were what Thorum referred to as the basics, and what the Greybeards first taught him. The basics of the basics. That was where I was at right now, but it still made me super happy to even have this much. How long did it take a normal person to learn these shouts? And I had many thoughts on how to incorporate other abilities to synergize with them. I haven't gotten much chance to use my primordial runes, but I wondered how they would mesh with such a similar ability. I turned the shower off, stepping out to dry myself. I stared at the hair binding that Scat Hack gave me briefly, and instead of the melancholic feeling, I smiled faintly. It weighed on my mind how much longer I was going to stay here in Skyrim. It's not as if I couldn't leave or return whenever I wanted, but it felt like I had many things going on here. Besides the dragon in the room, I couldn't help but worry about Rin, Artoria, Jen, and Thorum. The idea that a dragon known as the World Eater was running loose around here really did give me pause for concern. I didn't think he was going to suddenly pop up and kill those I cared about if Thorum still hadn't been challenged yet. Then I doubt anything was going to suddenly occur. What did the Greybeards say? They were mostly bunkered down, waiting for the storm to settle. And Meridia was here. She could definitely keep them safe. I had no doubt about that. Well, anything below Alduin, and the godly figures here, I don't think they would face much trouble. I would give it a little longer. I was genuinely curious about this supposed Elder Scroll, and I wanted to check that out before leaving. And the cautious part of me wanted to set a few more preparations in the house before leaving everyone to their own devices. Well, I just needed to trust them more. I couldn't always be around. As much as they meant to me, they had their lives to live as well. Ha! I let out another breath, tying my hair up. I wiped away the fog in the mirror, looking at my clothes that were folded to the side. Maybe it's time I start extending my wardrobe. It was an odd thought amidst this heavy stuff, but it took my mind off other matters. Maybe I was a little stressed out. That isn't exactly something uncommon for me, past or present life. It always felt like I was worrying about something or another, even when I appeared rather carefree. The only difference is now. Maybe I should find my little genie. A grin crept up on my face. I did make her a promise, and I intend to fulfill it. Warning, lewd scene ahead, contains blowjob and some minor anal play, female. Hello, Jin. I popped up right behind her. Wilhelm. She almost dropped what she was holding, clearly startled. Taking a deep breath, she gave me a little frown. Be careful, this is valuable stuff. She huffed, poking me. Is it now? I swept my arms around her, giving her a little hug. What do you want? She asked, allowing herself to lean into my arms. I'm not done with my research yet. I needed to ask the Archmage about stuff, but I think I narrowed it down to a few locations. Interesting, but not what I came here for. What did you come age? I gave her but a nice squeeze, earning a little surprised yelp from her. Can you take a guess? I whispered. Artoria and Rin are in the house. She breathed out. They are. My hand crept down her thigh. Does that bother you? HNN. She pushed her legs together as my hand reached between them. Do you intend to do it right here? Her voice quiet, but there was a certain excitement in it. Well, I'm just the tiniest bit stressed. I whispered. And someone's been teasing me for far too long. Do you require my services, master? Jin practically threw the items in her hands to the ground, looking up at me lustfully. I do. I am yours to do with you as please. Good, on your knees. I commanded. She didn't hesitate as she dropped down in front of me, nor did she ask what I wanted. her hands already moving to undo my belt. She let out a small gasp when my cock was freed, springing out in front of her face. She took a moment to stare at it. It was her first time seeing one in person. She reached out, grabbing a hold of my shaft, gently at first before applying just a little pressure. She gave it a few strokes, as if to get a feeling for it. Jin paused, looking up at me, eyes meeting. She moved her head down, tongue coming out as she licked up from under the base, all the way to the tip. I couldn't help but shudder, a small grin on her face. She began to work all around my member, tongue moving up and down, hitting every spot on my cock, carefully caressing every inch of it with her tongue. Finally, she moved to the tip, her mouth opening just enough to let it start moving in. Her tongue lapped up my underside as she continued to take me further. And every so often she tilts her head to a certain angle to get down on it, just a bit more, until her nose was pushed all the up into my groin. I felt my toes curl, the feeling of my cock being massaged by her throat. I could barely see her eyes look up at me, wanting, expecting. I reached my hands out, fingers mixing in with her hair as I got a firm grip. I let out a groan as I took charge and pulled her head back and pushed it back down again. She didn't resist it, allowing me to use her for my own pleasure. In fact, her own hand snaked between her legs, and if her movements were anything to go by, she was getting off on it. I think that was her kink, getting used. I didn't dwell on it. Her throat continued to contort around my cock, being turned into my own personal fuck hole, thrusting in and out to purely satiate my own desire. Jen! I breathed out, my hands releasing her head. She paused in her sucking, letting my cock escape from her throat, head coming out with a loud pop. She looked up at me again, watery eyes, a few tears streaming down her face. Her hand quickly grabbed my shaft and started pumping. I've never tasted anything before. Her free hand moving up to fondle my balls. Even now, I've never eaten nor drank a single item, waiting for this. She hungrily stared. Will you fill my belly for the first time? Make it so I always remember the taste of your seed. It was enough to push me over the edge. My member twitched, and she noticed, enough to latch onto the tip, my cum bursting out into her mouth. Her eyes didn't leave mine, and she continued to suck everything out. Her hand slowly pumped my full length, squeezing every last drop until I finally stopped spent. My cock fell out of her lips again, but they shut tight, not letting anything leak. She adjusted her head for me to see, her throat visibly swallowing everything I gave her. She opened her mouth for me to see, nothing remained. Thank you for the meal. She licked her lips happily, patting her stomach. So, this is what it's like to have a warm meal fill me up. The sultry look she gave me was enough if I wanted to go for another round, but I think you're misunderstanding something. I grabbed up, lifting her up to her feet. This is your punishment, bend over. I commanded her again. Once again, she didn't hesitate, steadying herself on the nearby bookcase, ass extended towards me. I moved my hands to the hem of her dress and pulled it up over her butt, her bare rear greeting me. No panties, what a naughty girl. I gave her a little spank. Ah! She let out a small noise. And look at this. I ran my hand between her legs, brushing against her pussy. I moved it up for her to see. Look how wet you are. Were you expecting something, Why, yes. She breathed out haggardly. I want it. You want it. Wouldn't that be a reward? I hummed, running a hand through her hair. She looked at me warily as I gently took the lamp off her neck, hanging like a necklace. It was small, like an ornament that one wouldn't take a second look at. The interesting thing about this little trinket is that its outside form was almost irrelevant, the magics holding it together malleable as long as its principles aren't interfered with. Just apply a little bit of alteration magecraft, and changing its shape was quite easy. Her eyes widened as it visibly shifted. You! She blushed, quite visibly, the red contrasting against her blue cheeks. How debauched. The lamp, in its new form, I moved it down, rubbing it against her slit, letting it get coated in her juices. What kind of master would I be if I didn't make sure this was nice and secure, right? Of course. She groaned, her lamp moving against her sensitive place. I am yours to us. She let out another surprised shout, my finger prodding her other, taunt hole if you wish it. Even that place exists for your pleasure. She leaned forward a little, spreading her cheeks. Thankfully, There isn't any kind of mess associated here due to her existence. She doesn't produce waste of any kind. I think that's enough. I stated. The lamp, in the form of a butt plug and soaked in her own arousal, began to push against her little blue rosebud. She arched her back, a small whine escaping her lips. Good. I soothed her. It's going in. She groaned as her ass was penetrated. Her own lamp used to spread her open for the first time. It was slow going, or perhaps I was doing it slowly just to get a reaction from her. Her gritting her teeth, juices literally dripping to the ground, her own fingers sinking into those plump cheeks, but it didn't take long for it to fully push into the base. Another small whimper left her mouth as she almost collapsed onto the ground, panting heavily, legs shaking. Master, it's inside. Good girl. I praised her, much to her continued pleasure. Now, you're not allowed to take it out unless I give you permission. I made sure to push on the plug and wiggle it for added effect. Ah! She let out a sudden moan, fully falling to the ground, a small puddle forming underneath her, having been finally pushed over the edge herself. Well, I'll take that as an acknowledgement. Chapter 143. I woke up some hours later with a yawn, rising from the couch in the living room. I decided to take a nap and seemingly lost track of time, but I felt rather refreshed. Was it the actual sleep, or what I did right before it? Running a hand through my hair, I sat up looking around. Seeing no one else around, I decided to make my way to the kitchen where I heard some sounds coming from. I wasn't too surprised to see who was in there. Artoria and Rin had apparently woken up a little while ago and already had something in front of them eating. Yo! I greeted, giving a half-hearted wave. Schweinorg! Rin looked a bit tired still, and I recalled she wasn't really a morning person, or whatever time it is when she woke up. Artoria perked up, fork in her mouth, and cheeks a little swollen. She made a noise of acknowledgement. Cute. I couldn't help but pat her head, earning another muffled noise from her. Thankfully, the house came with a fridge and other amenities magical in nature, so they could still work in this world. Best of all was the coffee maker, already having a pot ready. From what I saw in front of Rin, I could guess who I had to thank for that. I enjoyed my first sip, sitting down in front of them. Sleep good after your adventure? I asked. I forgot what a bed was until now. Rin exaggerated, but she was clearly refreshed. The softness of a bed is always welcomed, but I am more than used to sleeping out under the stars on the ground. Artoria added, there are many things taken for granted in this era that I did not have. It's easy to forget sometimes how much Artoria actually spent at war, camping, and moving from battlefield to battlefield. And the food, I'm sure. I chuckled. The horror. Artoria whispered, shuddering. Mai and Rin just shared a look as she reached over and pat Artoria on the shoulder. Sikans. Rin offered her own plate. Yes, thank you. The King of Knights happily accepted. If things went differently, I wonder if I could have just won her heart through food? Be me woman, and I'll let you eat whatever you want whenever you want. Well, the thought of amusing if nothing else. You two up for a little trip after breakfast? I took another sip of my coffee. While I don't prefer it this black, I could still appreciate the high quality. Like what? Rin asked, setting down her own cup. Whiterun is only like a 20-minute walk from the house if we go that way. It should be almost noon now. I scratched my cheek, mentally calculating the time. I took a nap that turned into a sleep, and they slept for over a day, so it should be thereabouts. We have not seen one of these towns besides Winterhold, and for that we merely sought out supplies for our trip. Artoria expressed her thoughts. What do you think, Rin? I wouldn't mind checking it out. I have enough money to go on a shopping spree and not feel bad. Rin sighed, staring up at the ceiling. Something wrong? I asked. It's just a weird feeling being rich. I have an exorbitant amount of money right now, and I feel like you need a smack upside the head for being depressed about being rich. I deadpanned. Bite me, Schweinorg. Rin snorted. But it's more like all my previous times saving, trying to scrounge what little resources I had and hoarding everything so tightly. And now, here I am with mountains of gold to my name. I know the feeling. I smiled lightly. Perhaps not with material wealth, but other things. I could recall how starved for different kinds of affection I was, and here I was now with friends, lovers, and family. Are you happy? Ha! Are you happy, having arrived at this point? Was it worth it? Looking back now, would you have changed anything? I looked down at my coffee, perhaps projecting some of my own thoughts onto the question. Yeah, I'm pretty happy right now. She had a content smile on her face. I have some things I would probably change, but not many regrets. I glanced at Artoria, who looked pleased at Rin's words, a sentiment I shared. I was happy Rin finally had some sort of peace, some happiness of her own making to hold on to. That look in her eyes, I didn't see that veiled stress or self-consciousness that permeated all her actions and words. The quiet and peaceful atmosphere was suddenly interrupted as Jin burst into the kitchen, holding several scrolls. "You're all here," she exclaimed, dumping them on the table. "Hello, Jin." Artoria was the first to speak up. "Artoria!" Jin practically jumped over to, grabbing her in a quick hug. "Jen!" Artoria smiled at the affection, returning the hug. "How's my sister?" Sister!" Artoria stammered out. "Are we not?" Jin pulled back, looking confused. "I believe the term was harem sisters for when we share the same man." I held back a chuckle, sipping my coffee. I don't know if Jin was intentionally teasing Artoria, or this was her default personality, but it was hilarious to watch. Now that I think about it, Jin was saying the same thing to Meridia, getting her on board with the whole idea. That is not incorrect. Artoria didn't look upset at the term, more just taken back by the suddenness. Perhaps the negative connotation of sister in her mind was giving her pause. Jin just beamed at the admittance, and I think she's doing it on purpose at this point. Rin cleared her throat, drawing our attention. "What's with all this stuff? Does it have to do with the Elder Scroll?" She gestured towards the documents and scrolls set on the table. "Yes," Jin nodded enthusiastically. "I was able to reference several things in the library at the college to help me." Jin moved over, taking a seat next to me. I watched her shift, ever so slightly in her seat, the movement of her behind to better make herself comfortable. I guess she listened to my words. "Did you find any leads?" I asked, standing up to get a refill. "And would you like a cup of coffee?" "Coffee." She tilted her head. "I would love to try some. I have knowledge of the taste, at least the remnant variety, but I am curious to actually experience it." "You've never had coffee before?" Rin looked surprised. "Well, I've lived almost my entire existence in my lamp. There have been many first times in these past weeks," Jin admitted. "You poor thing." Rin looked aghast at the thought, turning to me. "Schweinorg, you get her all the coffee." "Yes, ma'am." I saluted. Rin definitely was a magus. If nothing else, she had those same thoughts regarding coffee. "How do you take it?" I asked. "I don't know." Jin quirked a smile. "I shall try whatever you recommend. I was having mine just plain black. I guess that's a good starting point." I hummed to myself. "I do not recall ever seeing you partake in a meal either. Have you not tried eating before, Jen?" Artoria added. "Well." I noticed out of the corner of my eye that Jin glanced at me, a very faint pink on her cheeks. "I have tried something rather recently. I suppose I should branch out some more, though." She smiled innocently. "Your first meal was as good?" Artoria questioned. "Oh my, it was delicious." "Oh, Jin, you really are a glutton for punishment. I shall help you try all the foodstuffs in these lands." Artoria decided, her eyes shining bright. "You sure you just aren't looking for a reason to stuff yourself?" Rin deadpanned. "Nonsense. It is my duty as her sister to help her experience the joys in life." Artoria denied seamlessly, minus her turning her eyes away and blushing a little. "Sure, I completely believe you." Rin rolled her eyes. "Well, it's not like we don't have enough money to feed your appetite for a few days." "Rin!" Artoria huffed. "I'm not that bad," she muttered. "Here you are." I interrupted, placing a cup in front of Jin. They both seemed to stop, watching her take it into her hands, hesitantly taking a sip for herself. "Well, what do you think?" There is a pleasant bitterness to it. I don't think I prefer it this way, though." Jin inspected it again before taking another sip. "Well, I don't think most people like it this black." "The only way to drink it is black," Rin exclaimed. "As Rin says, some misguided people think black is the only way to drink coffee. There are many things to add to enhance the flavor beyond such a plebeian palate. This is a hill I'll die on. Schweinorg, you better be ready to fight after that." Rin raised her fist at me. Artoria bopped her on the head. Ow! Rin whined, rubbing the spot. You're always so cranky in the morning, Rin. Artoria sighed. Rin blew a raspberry, then pushed her head into her arm on the table. Too little sleep. You slept for like a day and a half. I pointed out. Too little sleep. Rin reiterated with a yawn. Anyways, what's this about the thingy or something, Jin? Oh, yes. Jin perked up, content to watch from the side. With some resources from the college, and some help from the Archmage, we are about to narrow down a few locations that we think the Elder Scroll is at. Well done. Awesome. Good job, Jen. I reached for her hand, taking it in mine. You've been doing a lot of good work. Thank you. I want her to know that I appreciate her. Perhaps I should show it more often. Yes, of course. She looked a little bashful under the sudden praise, but she made no attempt to move her hand from mine. So, what are we looking at exactly? I asked, wanting to know some details. Well, Harkin's journals were a mess. If they weren't coded, then they were almost nonsense to anyone but him. But from what was pieced together, his daughter either stole or was sent out to retrieve an Elder Scroll, and she disappeared with it or looking for it. We have a few locations we think she's at or the scroll is at based on movements, and some old stories and legends. I let go so she could roll out a map, showing a basic view of Skyrim. Well, there were about a dozen places, but we think these 3 are the highest probability. She pointed at 3 markings, bigger than several more on the map. They're not too far apart. Artoria took a good look. We can devise a route to hit all 3 in one trip. Could probably do them all in a day. Schweinorg is better at utilizing the kaleidoscope. How many issues did we run into just because we couldn't strong-arm a door or trap because it might have brought the place down on our heads? Rin voiced her own thoughts. Why didn't you just take Ruby out? I grinned. Fuck you, you know why. Rin huffed. Oh, the next time Ruby comes out, please come and get me. I very much want to meet her. Jin said, earning Rin's attention. Sure. Rin sighed. Well, I couldn't fault her. It was hard to decline a request like that when Jin gave such a look. Anyways, what are these spots marked? I asked. This one is the Ice Harrow Cavern. She pointed to the southernmost one. This one over here is of the Nameless Sanctuary, and lastly is the Dim Hollow Crypt. Now I think the most likely. It's the crypt. I cut her off. What? She looked confused. Definitely the crypt. Rin just nodded. I would wager much that it is indeed the crypt. Artoria didn't even bat an eye. How are you all so sure? Oh, I forgot you aren't familiar with vampires. I laughed. Something you need to understand about them, they are very stereotypical. What do you mean? Jin still looked confused. All the lore, the stories, even popular media, yeah, lots of that is depressingly accurate. Even back in our homeworld, the dead apostles act very much like a stereotypical vampire you might read about in a novel. Complete with some edgy naming convention and a castle of edginess. A place named after a crypt? That's 100% guaranteed to be some vampire activity. It's sad that it's so true. Rin just shook her head. Such things were known even in my time. Artoria added, but my notes all point to the Nameless Sanctuary being the most likely. I pat her shoulder. I'll tell you what, we'll check the crypt first, and if we're wrong, you can act smug all you want and I won't argue with you about these kinds of matters in the future. Humph, I'll hold you to this. She crossed her arms with a huff. Oh, you poor girl. Maybe if vampires were something known in her home world, she would understand. Even Harkon acted like a stereotypical vampire. It was sad to think about, especially since I had to interact with the dead apostle ancestors in many iterations of my past life. Not to mention Altruge, that emo girl is off throwing a tantrum somewhere. Well, before we go, I wanted to head back over to Whiterun. Whiterun. That is the city with the Dragonborn, your friend, correct? That's the one. I nodded. Rin and Artoria expressed their desire to go. Do you want to come as well? You wouldn't mind having me there? I don't exactly blend in. She gestured to herself. I get many looks even at the college. I do not know how I will be treated in an open city like Whiterun. Please, we both know those looks aren't because you're blue. Oh, hush you. She smiled brightly, slapping my shoulder. I'm being serious, from what I've read. Nords aren't the most open sort to new things. Well, It's pretty much known I have wings there, haven't faced many issues, openly. Some idiots or something kicking up a fuss, but otherwise I get along great with them. I explained. All right, she agreed. I'll go. I do wish to meet this friend that you speak of and get a look at the city. Indeed, I too wish to meet this Thorum, this dragonborn for myself. Artoria nodded at Jin's statement. I wouldn't mind getting some supplies while we're out. Rin added. We can get anything we need before setting off to look for the Elder Scroll. I was a little excited. I wanted to see what the so-called Elder Scroll really was. And I wanted them to finally meet my best friend. It was weird. I don't think I've ever seen Jin nervous before. It wasn't obvious, but I knew her enough now to pick up on a few things. Large crowds like this, she hasn't ever had any experience dealing with before. In the college, she was probably only seeing a handful of people at most at a single time. Here, there were dozens of people around every corner, and oh boy did they take looks at her. It was hard to miss. Her skin was blue, a very beautiful blue that I found extremely attractive, but blue all the same. That was not a normal look around here, at least her shade of blue. I think there were some elves that had blue skin, but it was much more subdued. Almost immediately, I grabbed her hand to ease her nervousness. And if I'm being honest, I think she appreciated that more than she let on. Artoria didn't seem to mind either, and I continue to thank my lucky stars that they don't seem to be the jealous type. Made another mental note to give Artoria some affection later as well. Oh, these look nice. Rin was staring at a stand filled with jewelry along with some uncut stones in a basket. No obvious mistakes. She held up an emerald necklace to the sky, letting some light shine into it. Cuts are clean. Jewel has barely any impurities. I stopped listening as she started haggling with the owner, beating down the poor woman until she got the item for somewhat a deal. Oh, I like these. Jin pulled me over to another stand, the customer giving her a quick look, but didn't say anything. The fur on these boots is just splendid, and the design is lovely. Would it be sexist to make a girl's comment about her immediately going over some shoes? 12 septims for your girlfriend, the elderly woman said, a gentle tone in her voice. Sure. I happily set the coins on the counter, letting Jin her hug new boots. See anything else you want? Well. She took a glance at a scarf hanging from above. I chuckled, squeezing her hand. The scarf as well. I looked up and saw another one that piqued my interest, that one too. I pointed to it. 7 septims. The old woman said plainly. How do I look? Jin quickly put the scarf on around her neck as I added more coins to the counter, pocketing the second one for now. Oh, darling, if you didn't have a man, you would have to beat them back with a shovel. Older woman laughed. Jin looked elated at the compliment. I think doubly, so because it was from someone outside of our circle. A stranger complimented her and wasn't put off by her uniqueness. I'm a lucky man. I kissed her cheek, earning a bright smile from her. The old woman just cooed. Reminds me of my husband, bless his soul in Sovngarde. You take care of her, young man. She wagged her finger. Well, I think she takes more care of me. I laughed. And don't you forget it. Jin poked me playfully, turning back to the older woman. Thank you for the items. Oh, don't mention it, dearie. I just make them to pass the time these days. Now, Shu, go spend time with your boyfriend away from this old woman. She gave a warm smile. Jin giggled, pulling me along to where Artoria was. Find anything good? I asked as we got closer. I have yet to find any item that I wish to procure. Artoria admitted as we walked around. She did a good job of always keeping Rin in her sights. Is that so? I hummed as she turned to look at something else. Yes, I gently wrapped the second scarf around her, earning a startled look from her. Wilhelm. She touched the fabric, looking up at me and at Jin, who wore a similar one, if a different color. Do you like it? It is lovely. Her cheeks turned a faint pink. Thank you. Of course. I smiled. Wilhelm. We all turned around to see who shouted. I recognized the voice immediately, but no one else did. Thorum. I greeted with a wave, having noticed Rin creep back up at my name being dropped so loudly. I guess it wasn't this weird running into him. The companion's building isn't very far away, and this is the biggest market in Whiterun. Not to mention we probably stick out like a sore thumb. My friend, you are looking better after our training. Much less dirt on your face. He came up, slapping my shoulder. And who are these beautiful ladies? I twitched slightly at the mention of our training. It was mostly me eating dirt, or getting embarrassed by my lack of skill in the area. Well, I guess lack of skill is relative. You must be Thorum. I am Artoria Pendragon, Wilhelm's girlfriend in Rinsgard. Artoria was the first to introduce herself. Well met, Lady Pendragon. Thorum gave a polite greeting. Will has spoken much about you. I'm Jin, also Wilhelm's woman. She smiled at my friend. Lady Jin, you have also been spoken of, but he didn't mention your exotic and lovely coloring. Thorum was smooth with the compliment, and if I didn't know any better, I may have been worried. Oh, you are just as sweet as he said. Jin giggled. Rin Tosaka. Rin finally spoke. I'm his grandfather's student. She was polite, if a little blunt. It is a pleasure to finally meet you, Lady Tosaka. Thorum greeted, having a little trouble with the naming convention. Come, let me buy you all a meal and drink. We can exchange stories at Will's expense. Thorum laughed. You know what? I would love to hear some stories. Rin looked at me evilly. What's this you said about training? Chapter 144. Yes, then Will did a flip in the air and flies straight into the ground. Thorum burst out in laughter, slamming his mug of mead onto the table. I shook my head inside. The others were laughing at my expense, but it wasn't upsetting. Rin was really squeezing out every bit of information from Thorum that she could, basically starting from the last training session. How long did he keep going at it? Rin grinned, eyeing me. Oh, an hour at least, maybe more. Thorum chuckled. Never in the same way, but for some reason, he always ended up with his face in the ground every single time. Well, he does always like to brag about how talented he is. Rin snickered. I'm glad my genius is finally recognized by you. I raised my own mug up before taking a drink. Honestly, it's only rivaled by my handsomeness. I smirked. Boo! Rin blew me a raspberry. He has been getting a mite prideful these days. Maybe we should have another training session? Thorum laughed. Mayhaps it is appropriate to remind him and keep his ego grounded. Artoria added, surprisingly holding a mug of her own. I did not think she really enjoyed alcohol much, or maybe she just has specific tastes. I could imagine that this stuff was much closer to what she could remember from her era, and she was probably used to it from the first time I brought some around. Well, I would not say no to more people. Thorum rubbed his chin. Your beauty and grace hide such prowess, Miss Pendragon. Just the thought of fighting you makes me shiver, as if my instincts are screaming that it is a bad idea. Artoria looked very happy from his words. I think she was glad he didn't mention that she was delicate or small. You are Wilhelm's friend. You can call me by my name. She smiled at him, though not arguing with his words. His dragon instincts were fairly good, if he could tell that much. Another! Jin threw her hand up, slamming an empty mug onto the table, her fifth one so far. Maybe letting her drink so much alcohol so soon was a bad idea. Agreed. Thorum followed suit, downing the last of his, mimicking her actions. Oh geez. Rin face-palmed. I didn't think she could even get drunk. Can she get drunk? Is she drunk? Rin just shook her head. Jin just giggled. Lighten up. There is no harm, Rin. Artoria agreed. We are among friends. Artoria followed suit with a smile herself. It was rare for her to indulge herself like this. Fine. Rin rolled her eyes, but smiled brightly as well. Get me one with the next round. Woo! Jin cheered. Waiter, another round. Coming up. A shout was heard behind the counter. Honestly, at this point, half the tavern was stealing glances at us. Maybe because Jin was very eye-catching, maybe because they were very beautiful and exotic as far as looks went, or perhaps because of Thorum, and to a lesser extent me. But, for whatever reason, we were basically the center of attention here. I'm curious, how did the two of you actually meet? Rin asked as a woman came by, setting some fresh mugs on the table for us and taking our dishes away. Oh, that's actually kind of funny. I scratched my cheek. It was a strange situation. Thorum nodded. You want to or? You go ahead, my friend. I'm curious how it was from your perspective. He gestured for me to go on. All right. I took a big drink, letting the honey taste pour down my throat. Well, it started off with that mishap with my magic. I glanced around, Rin and Artoria nodded, but Jin looked confused, and Thoram was contemplative. My portal ability, I clarified. First time using it. Had a bit of an accident with my calculations. Oh, I see. Thoram nodded in understanding. Yeah, did the magical equivalent of hitting a tree when I used it for the first time. So this is nothing new then. Thoram grinned. Yeah, laugh it up. I lightly hit his shoulder. So, I had a bit of a tumble. Head hurting, these guys find me and patch me up. The storm cloaks. I paused again. You know about the political situation in Skyrim at the moment? I read it. Jin interjected. Stormcloaks, rebelling against the Empire, to summarize it. That works. I nodded. Anyways, got found by the Stormcloaks. They patched me up, but apparently the camp got raided by the Empire. Everyone gets tied up, including me, because they had no idea who I was. Why would they tie you up too? You were unconscious and probably hurt. Rin looked confused. It is admittedly the intelligent course of actions. Artoria clarified. He could have been a combatant injured in previous battle. Honestly, there were an uncountable number of possibilities. It was the safe action to take when dealing with enemies. I don't fault them for treating me with caution when I was pulled into everything as well. I was crossing the border at a bad time, and they assumed I was with the Stormcloaks as well. Thoram took a drink of his mead. I do not think it helped that I was a Nord, as are the majority of the Stormcloaks. Anyways, I wake up, hands bound, a killer headache, and we're on the back of a cart escorted by a bunch of armed guards. I started to weave the tale. I look around, and the first words out of my mouth are "fuck me, dut." I gestured over to Thoram. I share a conversation with some Stormcloak guy. He gives me some information, and apparently, we're sitting right next to the guy who started the rebellion and murdered the king. Or something like that. I haven't really looked into it much. That sounds super unlucky, like holy shit. Rin started at me incredulously. Thoram let out a laugh. It could have been. There have been tales of the Empire foregoing legal rights and sending prisoners straight to the block. I can guess you both escaped your binds. Artoria looked, unamused by the insinuation. Jin, as if sobering up for a moment, seemed angry, a look I hadn't ever seen on her face before. Maybe we should go pay a visit to the Empire. She gave a very innocent smile. You're sweet. I kissed her cheek. Hee, she giggled, as if forgetting her previous words, and went back to drinking. Thoram gave his big goofy smile, shooting me a thumbs up. I am still waiting to learn this powerful magic of yours, my friend. Oh, fuck off. I waved my hand at him. Magic, what magic? Rin perked up. This idiot keeps spouting some nonsense about my natural charm being some sort of magic. I rolled my eyes. Well, I think it would make more sense. Rin snorted. Indeed, my friend. I believe you should share your secrets. Thoram joined in. Oh, screw you both. I huffed. I can't help it if I can just charm the panties off the ladies. I wiggled my eyebrows. Oh, can you now? Artoria raised an eyebrow. I cleared my throat. Please, do go on. Rin had a wide grin on her face. Yes, Will, please elaborate. Thoram also chimed in. I'm not wearing panties, Jin declared. We all turned to her, who just started going into a giggle fit. Drunk Jen is precious, and I want to cherish her forever. I dipped my finger into my drink, using the liquid to draw a few runes onto the table, creating a simplistic and unsteady bounded field, something that can be wiped away quite easily. Its only purpose was to muffle our conversation to anyone outside of our table. Anyways, we were tied up, right? My ability to change the subject was masterful as always. Smooth. Rin deadpanned. But I am curious, go on. Well, I was mostly joking, and Artoria knew that if her smile was anything to go by. I don't particularly like the Stormcloaks, but they were good to have at my back. I was able to communicate with some looks to one of them that I could use magic, though Ram picked up on it easily as well. So, I burst a wheel of the card with a botched reinforcement, and in the sudden confusion we staged a breakout. A botched reinforcement? That's pretty smart, and something I'll need to remember. Rin muttered. I remember. Thoram took a drink. The ones guarding us, the majority of them were green. Probably never seeing a true battle before, just there to bask in the glory of defeating a group of Stormcloaks. They were disorganized in the mess and panicked. There was no commander to take charge. Artoria looked at me in surprise. Now that I think about it, there was a woman on a horse giving orders, and there was another prisoner with us, a horse thief who tried to make a run for it before we moved, but after I blew the cart up, she went after him, since he bolted into the nearby forest. Artoria furrowed her brow, looking a little annoyed. She should have sent out some of her men, not go herself. She left them without a clear chain of command, and chaos ensued without anyone to rally them. I won't say anything in her defense. I held my arms up. In hindsight, it was a bad idea on their part, but I will not lose any sleep over their decisions. Thoram added, "So, you guys fought. Anything interesting happen?" Rin asked. "About what you would expect." I shrugged. I was a bit weaker back then, but they still didn't have any mages, so I could have free reign with my own magic. Really, the most annoying thing was a couple archers. Suddenly, Thoram broke out in laughter. "I remember. You threw a dagger at one of them, but it only clunked him in the head and he fell over." I snorted, laughing myself. I recalled what happened. I completely forgot about that. I never had much of talent for throwing knives or the like. I let out a small sigh, as the image of it was still fresh in my mind now. Afterwards, we went our separate ways, only meeting back up again when I went to Whiterun. Oh, tell them how you met Meridia." Jin looked excited at the idea. "She told you?" I was mildly surprised. "Uh-huh." Jin nodded. "I'm curious now." Artoria spoke. "There is definitely a story here and I have to know." Rin looked at me. Thoram sat up a little straighter. "You never did tell me the full story of how you met, only that you met her at her temple. It's not that interesting." I waved it off. "I just met her after clearing her temple of some necromancer. We clicked and the rest is history." "Liar," Jin poked me. "Tell the truth, mister," she continued to poke me. "You're really going to make me say it?" I groaned. "Oh God, I really want to hear this now." Rin looked rather gleeful. "She asked me what I wanted as my reward after defeating the necromancer and cleansing her temple." I sighed. "You didn't." Rin broke out in laughs. "I did. I don't know if I should laugh or admire your bravery." Thoram seemed a bit speechless. "Why not both?" Rin shared a look with him. Both sounds good. Hate you both." "I don't understand." Artoria spoke up. "Damn you and your adorable naivety." "Say it." Jin leaned in, poking me further. "I asked her to be my woman." I dropped my head to the table. "He's blushing." Rin cried in laughter. "Oh, I see." Artoria turned a little pink. "How bold. Truly you are an inspiration." Thoram toasted, holding back his own bellowing laughter with a drink. "I think it's cute." Jin cooed. Yeah. I sighed. "Let's change the subject. What's going on with you, Thoram?" "I was thinking of heading out, seeing some of Skyrim for a bit." He calmed down, seemingly adopting a somewhat serious expression. "You're not worried about a dragon attack?" I asked. I wouldn't have stuck around like he had, but his sense was duty was admirable if nothing else. "I am, but I can't just sit here forever," he admitted. Drake's words spoke true to my heart. At the very least, I wished to step out of the city for a few days. He let out a sigh. "I had spoken to the Jarl. He did give his blessing." "The Jarl agreed, huh?" "Well, from a pragmatic view, it would be smart of him to not run afoul the Dragonborn when he's already being so helpful and listening to the Jarl's commands." "Any idea on where you want to go?" "I have not thought that far ahead." He scratched his head. "The college would be an interesting place to visit. I would not mind seeing where you have studied and maybe learn a thing or two myself." "The college is great." Rin beamed. "They'll happily accept you. I heard some things about this Dragonborn. You're supposed to be able to pick up magic really easily. I'm curious how that works. Is it some kind of enhanced spiritual wisdom? Or maybe a magical phenomenon, similar to mystic eyes that breaks down any magic knowledge you learn to better assimilate it?" I understood some of those words. Thoram chuckled. "I would not fret. She sometimes speaks in such riddles." Artoria gave a light smile. "I find it appropriate to just nod along whenever she addresses me in such a way." "Saber." I will take your advice to heart." They shared a small chuckle between them at Rin's expense. "But the college does sound enticing. I will have to visit sometime." "I also work there." Jin opened her eyes, having been resting on my shoulder for a while now. "Oh, Miss Jen, what job do you have at the college?" Thorum asked. Jin perked up. She did so love to talk about the books there. I'm the assistant librarian. If you need anything found, any knowledge, I can find it for you. She puffed up her chest. I will be in your care then, Miss Jin. Thorum nodded at her with a smile. She's right, and the Archmage would set you up with anything you really wanted. I have it on good authority that they recently received a sizable donation. More supplies should be rolling in from outside Skyrim soon. Oh, a sizable donation? Thorum looked at me. The person who donated it sounds very generous and honorable. Hopefully prices will be kept down a certain extent from this. I didn't elaborate, but he could read between the lines. But if you want something to do in the immediate time frame. I shared a look around the table. Rin and Artoria were clued in on what I was talking about, and they gave me their silent approval. We had a little excursion planned in a little bit. Shouldn't take more than a day. Could give you a chance to stretch your legs. Sure, what do you need? Thorum said without hesitation. You're not even going to ask? He shrugged. If you require my aid, I will lend it. You are a good man, Thorum. Artoria nodded approvingly. We seek one of those fabled Elder Scrolls. Do you wish to join us in this quest? An Elder Scroll? Thorum looked shocked. I have only heard tales, he rubbed his chin. To seek one out, I would regret it for the rest of my life if I did not accompany you on such a mission. Sweet, one more person to help kill giant spiders while I stand back. Rin approved in her own way. Thorum didn't take offense. I shall slay any spiders that approach you, Miss Tosaka. You can call me Rin. She grumbled, but she didn't like displeased by his attitude at all. What about you? I poked my blue genie. Do you want to take some time to sober up and come? Sleepy. She yawned. I'll take that as a no. Well, I don't think she would have wanted to come anyways. She's much more at home surrounded by books than out in the thick of it. Well, we can drop her off at home and pick up any supplies we need there. As I said, it shouldn't be more than a day if everything goes well, 2 at the most. Good. I look forward to seeing your battle prowess, Thorum. Artoria nodded. I have had stories of the Dragonborn, and I am curious to see it in person. Artoria approved as well. That's always good. Miss Artoria. He corrected himself. I do look forward to wielding my blade at your side. Wilhelm has told me tale of your knighthood. I will see it firsthand. Oh, don't forget me. Rin huffed. Of course, Rin. Thorum smiled. I am expecting to see your magical talent in action. Geez, I don't think he's even doing that on purpose. Buttering them up in all the right ways. Really, he's just a genuinely nice guy, always trying to make people around him happy. I put my arm around Jin, her giving a happy grunt at my action. All right, let's drop Jin off and then head out. I pulled her up into my arms, picking her up off the chair. She kicked her legs in my arms happily. Damn, she really is a lightweight. Though, I can't really blame her, like one of the few times she ever even drank anything, and she downed 6 mugs of mead. Well, I was looking forward to this little adventure. It will be my first time doing this whole thing in a party. Perhaps I should take on a more traditional mage role? I won't deny that a younger me is absolutely gleeful at the idea of forming a party and exploring a dungeon. Chapter 145. I hummed, walking down the stairs of my house. And what is this? I heard Thorum's voice, pointing at a device from within the kitchen. A magical device that stores things within and keeps them cold. Artoria answered, and I assumed she was talking about the refrigerator. Rin, who was sitting on the couch, looked up from a book in her hands. Jin in bed. Yeah, I put her down and she went out fast. I chuckled. She's going to have fun with that hangover when she wakes up. I could only shake my head thinking about it. I made sure to leave a note just in case we aren't back in time. So, any reason you're wearing that? She raised an eyebrow, staring at the robe I put on. Well, I am a mage. Yeah, but you're almost always wearing the same thing. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen you wear anything but those formal clothes of yours. I have a style and I rock it. I shrugged. Sure, let's go with that. She snorted. And maybe I need to change it up every once in a while. I originally stuck to those clothes, that style, because he made me feel a little more confident when I was less sure of myself. My earlier days were hectic, but I also liked how I looked, so I generally just wore similar stuff. And I was going to play the role of a mage, so I thought I should dress the part. Want your staff back? She asked. Oh, yes, please. I nodded enthusiastically. She didn't hesitate to pull it out of her bag and toss it to me. As soon as it entered my hand, I felt the magical energy swirl before I had to forcefully calm it down. I briefly forgot how assertive the staff was. Well, I guess that was as expected of a divine construct. God, that thing is still just as absurd. Rin looked at it warily. Didn't use it. I wouldn't have been mad if she wanted to test it. Hell no. She crossed her arms. That thing gives me a bad feeling. Yeah, I could see that. Artoria's divine construct was more peaceful, subdued, until used. The staff of Magnus wanted to be used, and it made that apparent. So, on an unrelated matter, how would you feel about getting aura? Is that even a question? She looked at me like I was an idiot. Fair. But I felt like I should ask regardless. I don't want to assume on stuff like this. Honestly, it was just polite. I'm not quite at the point where I can comfortably awaken someone's with any confidence, but if you wanted to be a sort of test subject, it might make everything faster. You want to test it on me? She looked skeptical. You know I would never do anything to hurt you. I know. She sighed. Some habits are hard to break. She pulled her knees up to her chest. What do you need to do? I just want to get a feel for my aura entering your body. I explained. That's it? And there won't be any side effects? Nope, completely harmless. All right, fine. She shrugged. How do you want to do this? I just want to put my hand on your back and push some aura into you. I walked forward and she turned, her back facing me. Ready? I asked, putting my hand on her. Go slowly, I want to see what happens too. Rin gave me the go-ahead. I took a deep breath, focusing on my aura. It flared around me, but I calmed it down. It focused onto my hand, more than the passive barrier that negates damage. This was me pulling forth the power of my soul as it began to seep into Rin. Oh, that's weird. Rin shifted slightly but calmed down. Good weird or bad weird? Yes, no? It's like you're trying to hug my soul. Not bad, but a little uncomfortable. Honestly, it seems kind of. She trailed off. Intimate. Yeah, she said quietly. I've heard similar things back on Remnant. I'm basically poking your soul with my aura to awaken your own. Much more complicated than that. From what I've gathered so far, basically my aura will deposit the concept onto her own soul, essentially implanting the ability into her core being. I had several theories about aura so far, that the souls of those on Remnant are a tad different, in that they can awaken theirs without another person doing the deed, whereas we need someone to initiate it. After a few more moments, I pulled back. Feels even weirder when you stop. Rin let out a breath. Yeah, almost depressing. Right? It felt like you were breaking up with me. Rin let out a chuckle. Aura is seemingly tied with certain emotions as well, and how a semblance is manifested. After feeling that, I can believe it. She sighed. So, you found your semblance yet? Nope. I fell onto the couch. I haven't been really trying to either. I kind of want it to come organically. Call it instinct. But I think it manifesting based on need or desire would be more beneficial than if I attempted to being it out forcefully. Will. Thoram smiled as he walked back into the room with Artoria. Hey, you guys ready? Or do you need to do anything before we head over? I swept my gaze around the room. I am ready, Thoram replied. Artoria told me that you all have the basic supplies stored away magically. He pat the sword on his back. And I have my sword with me, so I need nothing else. Still surprised that sword isn't acting up. Rin muttered. There were 2 dragons right next to it, and it was being very quiet. It was quelled by Artoria's presence, and it accepted Thoram. What a strange sword. Well, I'm ready. Rin stood up, and she was still dressed in her gear, but she took her staff and spear out, putting the spear on her back and staff in her hand. As am I. Artoria nodded, summoning her armor. Amazing. Thoram looked surprised. I wish to learn how to do that. He laughed. Well, at the very least, we can probably set you up with something that you can store stuff inside. I'm sure the Archmage had the college start making some storage items. But we can do that later. Let's get going. We all walked out of a portal I created, depositing us close to the base of a mountain. Snow began hitting us right in the face with a drastic drop in temperature. Hang on, let's get our bearings. Rin called out as we started looking around, map in her hands. From what Jin wrote, It should be up a few hundred feet. Arr, a furious shout bellowed out, shaking the area. It was loud and menacing, but it was no dragon. Just by eyesight, it was hard to make out under these snowy conditions. A troll. I towered my head. I don't think I've ever seen one that big before. It had to be at least 3 times the size of the ones I've ran into in the past. Wilhelm. Artoria spoke up. That is not a troll. She clenched her invisible sword in her hand. Something feels off about it. Thoram added. You. Rin helpfully commented as well. I raised my staff up. Fireball. I cast. The large ball of fire, much bigger than I intended, flew off, smacking it square in the chest. It didn't even stutter its steps, and the fire lit up the area, revealing its true nature. It had disgusting growths all over its body along with decayed patches and protruding additions that certainly did not belong to a troll. Necromancy. I sighed. It was definitely a branch of necromancy, focused on sculpting abominations. I didn't particularly agree with the magical craft, especially with who I was in a relationship with, but the thought of using a troll with their ridiculous regenerative abilities was certainly an interesting concept. Well, I was Meridia's lover. I couldn't exactly allow these things to exist. I raised my staff once again, a spell circle forming at the top as I pointed it at the approaching abomination. Lightning bolt. A simple spell, but with the staff and me intentionally putting a little oomph into it, a huge bolt discharged, blowing a hole through the creature. It stumbled, practically sliding onto the ground, but it didn't die. Thoram ran up and sliced its head off with an ease that showed his experience. What a strange thing, he commented. Guess we can make the assumption that vampires are here. They are known to be competent necromancers. I twirled my staff. Joy, more undead crap. Rin sighed. At least I have enough jewels on me to blow them up. Please don't cause an avalanche. Artoria pleaded. No promises. It looked like it was guarding the path. I pointed out. Don't know if there will be more surprises. Best be on your guard. Well, I didn't feel particularly threatened, but I didn't want to set a bad example. I walked over, bopping Rin on the head with my staff. Ebony flesh. I cast over her. Ow! She rubbed her head, staring at me angrily. How about some light? I grinned at her. Fine. She huffed, growing a large fireball at the point of her staff and holding it up in the air. It was a pleasant warmth, as well as providing some light. It also was a quick spell that she didn't need to prepare for immediately. I followed suit, keeping in the rear to give us more vision all around. Artoria took point, and Thoram in front of me, with Rin to the side of him. We didn't make it far before we found the entrance, along with dozens of skeletons all turning around to face us. And suddenly, I was having a flashback to Skathaka's training on that particular mountain. Why is it always undead? Artoria and Thoram ran out, cleaving their way through the decrepit skeletons. I hung back with Rin, flicking a spell here or there, but I was letting them have their fun, merely focusing on the ranged. Rin seemed content to just sit back as well, not even bothering to cast. She didn't have any kind of pensive look, so I think she just didn't feel bothered to contribute. Not that it was needed. Phew! Thoram let out a small breath, hefting his sword onto his shoulder. It was a nice warm-up. He beamed, scattered bones all around him. They were not strong foes, but their numbers would have been disadvantageous for any unsuspecting traveler who approached. Artoria furrowed her brow. I fear that their numbers were not always this large. Thoram's expression turned dark. We shall make sure they are properly laid to rest after clearing any vermin inside. Muffle! I turned to look at Rin, a similar action shared by the others as it enveloped us. A simple spell that removed almost all noise from walking. Detect life. She muttered again, looking a bit annoyed. 4 life signatures, near the entrance. They look weird. I'm guessing that's how vampires show up on this spell since they're technically undead, but still have a life force. She didn't pause and continued walking forward. I just raised an eyebrow. Looking at both Thoram and Artoria, they didn't speak either and continued. I guess they all were a bit put off by the situation. Necromancers generally need materials to work with. It isn't hard to guess where those came from. I'm telling you, we were ordered by Harkon to stay here until he sent someone. We all stopped, a few voices arguing back and forth. The first being a female. That was months ago. Something must have happened. A male voice answered back. You know Harkon doesn't make quick decisions. We might be here for another year before he finally sends someone. The female voice scoffed. You can stay here, I'm leaving. Fine, I'll just tell Harkon you disobeyed his orders. You bitch. We inched closer and could see the two arguing with another two sitting down at a table in the corner. This cave looked like it had been hollowed out a long time ago, and even their stuff being here for a while. Rin paused in her steps, reaching into her bag and withdrawing a very large ruby. She held it up with a dangerous smile on her face. Artoria let out a silent sigh, not even bothering to stop her. Thoram looked confused, and I didn't argue with her. I felt the magical energy inside it collide with her own as she tossed it in between all of the vampires standing around. It didn't explode like mine had done in the past. She was much more sophisticated than that. A hexagonal energy expanded out, condensed magical energy that took form and enveloped the immediate area before unleashing an explosion inside. It then absorbed the blast, grabbing the shockwaves and reeling them in, forcing them down, and dissipating without making much fuss. It was loud, but not to the extent of a normal bomb, and it was much less dangerous to be around. Nice! I admired the spell work. Humph! Rin flipped her hair back. I created that a while back. Wanted a more controlled explosion, since we were going to be in tight places a lot of times. How long did it take you to create that spell? Few days. She shrugged. I already had all the concepts devised and other uses for my jewels. It was just a matter of combining them appropriately. You make it sound so simple. She really is a genius. Impressive work, Rin. Thoram smiled. Thanks. She threw a thumbs up. I guess we aren't being stealthy anymore. I tapped my staff against the ground. A few skeletons came running towards us, and a few spikes shot out of the ground, impaling them, destroying the necrotic energies that kept them active. Seemingly, at my words, growling could be heard coming from the nearby shadows. Oh, undead doggies. Did we trigger some kind of trap? They looked like the ones I killed at Harkon's castle. Rin's spear impaled one easily as Thoram, and Artoria also began making short work of these undead mutts. Chain lightning! I lazily called out, my lightning spell arcing between multiple beasts, incinerating them with relative ease. Still too much power, more than I intended. What an absurd staff you are. Well, it's good I'm getting some more testing with it now. I'll probably need to be more familiar with it when I go to get that grail. Shall we continue? Artoria gestured to a stone gate after the last of the enemies were finally killed. I'm starting to get sick of this place. Rin grunted, swinging her spear to get some blood off it. I really hate undead. Let us go. Thoram began walking towards it, pulling a lever right next to the gate as it slowly opened up. We entered a sort of crypt, similar to the ones I've been in before. Draugr bodies littered the ground, and I was surprised that they didn't come up to attack. Someone's been through here. I muttered, Hey Thoram, would it be rude to destroy the corpses in case they're used against us? No, I would think they would appreciate the gesture if they had a say. Thoram shook his head. That was all I needed to know. I threw out a few fireballs, burning away the corpses that were thrown about. Rin followed suit as Artoria inspected the area. I found a chest. The knight spoke up, grabbing our attention. It was next to a table, some journals and notes set to the side as well. I can store it for now and we can split the spoils after. Aye, that sounds good. Thoram accepted easily. Fine. Rin didn't argue either, and Artoria just gave a small smile and a nod. The further we moved in, the less it looked like anyone had been here. I'm starting to wonder if they even investigated this far. No. Not in a no-no. Rin suddenly shrieks, pointing towards around the corner. I quickly ran up to see what she was pointing out. Nope. Nope-a-nope-a-nope-a-nope. There was a big-ass spider hanging from the ceiling that we could see through a metal bar door. Frostbite spiders, nasty things. Thoram eyed them. I have encountered them before. I dislike them very much. Artoria didn't react like me or Rin, but she clearly felt similarly. No one does. Thoram laughed. They are poisonous, and they can get very big. Schweinorg, fire. Fire everywhere. Rin grabbed me by the collar. I held out my staff through the openings and didn't even try to contain my power. Burn, 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 burn. A torrent of flame shot out, igniting all the webs and creatures that live there. Their shrieks suddenly filled the halls. They angrily started to attack the doors, but they did not budge. "Hate spiders." It shuddered. "That should have done it." Thorum spoke up after a few minutes. "More." Rin disagreed. Artoria cleared her throat. "Mayhaps we should be cautious and continue a bit longer," she said, not meeting Thorum's gaze. We sat there in silence for several minutes, my fire finally dying out as everything had been completely scorched inside. "That should be good," I settled. "Where did those spiders even come from? Shouldn't this have been sealed off?" "Who knows? Frostbite spiders show up in the strangest places sometimes." Thorum didn't question it. "If you all are uncomfortable, I can take the lead." "You're the best, Thorum." I pat his shoulder. "If you so desire." Artoria looked a little shy. "Schweinorg, you have a good friend." Rin looked very happy. "Would rather fight dragons than giant spiders." Thorum chuckled. Graham held out in front of him. I guess he was used to our antics at this point. As we pushed onwards, it was clear how far my flames actually reached, as the next room was completely scorched as well, and we couldn't even tell if the spiders had made it this far. "You do impressive work, my friend." Thorum looked around. I smiled, inspecting the area. "This looks like one of those puzzles you Nords are so fond of making in their tombs." It was another barred entryway, a bunch of metal bars in the form of a gate. Thorum went up to it, gripping it tight. "It is a heavy one, but we may be able to lift it without searching around for the mechanism. And considering it wasn't exactly obvious, there was a good chance it got burned." "Allow me." Artoria stepped up. "It is heavy. I do not know if I can lift it by my—" Artoria heaved it up, holding it without issue. Rin didn't even bat an eye walking through. "Is this how you guys did it on your own exploring?" I asked. "Of course." Rin grinned. "Well, damn, I had to use magic on the more absurd ones. Is it odd that I find her displays of strength sexy?" Thorum put his hand on my shoulder. "You sure know how to pick them," he said quietly before following along. I walked through as well, giving Artoria a wink. "You're mine later." "You don't say something like that here." She turned bright red, dropping the gate down. I couldn't help but chuckle, watching her fidget like that. "Schweinorg, get over here." Rin voice echoed out. "Hold your horses." Me and Artoria hurried on over as we came up on a staircase, leading down to a strange altar-like configuration below where Rin and Thorum were looking around. We descended, making sure to inspect it all, but I didn't see any obvious danger signs. "What is this?" Thorum looked confused. "Looks like some sort of ritual chamber or something, but I don't see any blatant signs of magical intent." I tapped my chin. "A strange pillar here in the center." Artoria voiced her own thoughts. "A button for some kind of mechanism? I wouldn't touch that." I advised. "I spent enough time with Merlin to know not to touch strange magic things." She said dryly, "That's fair. Let's see." Push my finger against it, my magical energy pulsed as I can a structural analysis. "Oh, that's interesting. If you put your hand on it, a spike will come out and steal your blood." "God, that's cliché." Rin scowled. "Vampires." I didn't disagree. "Well, it just needs blood. Can I borrow your dagger?" "You're going to pour your blood on it?" Rin looked at me skeptically, handing over the blade. "Is this wise, Wilhelm?" Artoria looked a little concerned. I couldn't see all the way to where the mechanism goes to, but it didn't look dangerous. I explained, using the dagger to cut into the palm of my hand and dripping the blood down on the device. It didn't activate immediately, but I poked it with the dagger, making a spike shoot up and the blood start to be absorbed. The ground beneath us began to shake and shift. "Oh, there's a second mechanism. Let's just avoid that." My structural analysis was looking at everything going on inside. It was a simple alteration between movements of gears, a slight shift, and it skipped right beyond that. The ground visibly shook more and began moving. The stone beneath us lowered a little as the monolith rose up out of the ground. The front of it started to lower, the grating of stone against stone echoing out in this strange hall. Everyone was a little tense as they saw what was inside. A woman fell out, catching herself with her hands, but my eyes were drawn to something else. A strange feeling, something inexplicable in the form of a scroll on her back. "Well, I think we found the Elder Scroll."